Hey everyone, Happy New Year. So I'm just going to read another chapter from Trainspotting, Irvine Welsh, today, called Victory on New Year's Day, for the day that's in it. It's one of my favourite chapters in Trainspotting. It's kind of a short story in itself. I suppose just give a bit of background for anyone who hasn't read Trainspotting, it's written really from the point of view of Stevie, who's a very minor character in the book, and I believe it's the only chapter where he's a constant presence throughout. He's mentioned a couple of other times, but he's not a big character in the book per se. But he lives in London, but is back up home for Edinburgh with the main characters, Sick Boy, Rinton, Begbie, Spud, for the New Year's party, and they're going to the Hearts Hibs game, the Edinburgh Derby, which will not be happening this year due to Hearts' controversial relegation in an unfinished season, but that's another story. I suppose this chapter has a lot of themes in it. There's maybe a sense of isolation that Stevie feels at different times, struggling to find a connection with his friends from back home as times have changed for him. The Irish aspect of the job, or the chapter, is something that's my favourite part. I suppose singing the wolf tones, which we'll come to in a few minutes, was quite novel. Like, I wasn't aware that Hibernian fans had that connection with Ireland. I wasn't fully aware until I read the book. So that was interesting, and the fact to go to a game in Hearts and Hibs after, it inspired me to go to a Hearts Hibs game myself last March, a week before lockdown, which was a great experience. And I suppose just it's a bit of a coincidence, but the two times I've been to football matches in Scotland, they've both been 3-1 away wins for Hearts. So if anyone from Hart and Midlothian Football Club would like to give me a few free tickets for games, any cup finals or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to accept those. Just give me a shout. So look, another central theme of this chapter, one for the ladies as well, is a bit of romance. That romance and is a major part of this chapter too. So I hope you'll enjoy it, and if you do have this version of Trainspotting and want to read along with me, it's page 41. I now and again at the end of the chapter I'll just give my tuppence worth on a couple of things, analysis wise of the chapter, as well. And if you wanted to leave any comments or anything like that and to generate discussions on it, then that would be great. Now, I apologise in advance for some of the language, as Irvine Welsh. As readers of Irvine Welsh might know, it is quite coarse at times, and I apologise for my poor singing also, because there's sections where I have to sing along as part of the music they're playing at the party. Rather than reading out lyrics, it's better to sing it, I found. So sorry for that. Hopefully I don't offend your ears too much. So we'll get stuck into it anyway there. I'll start reading a few. So, Victory on New Year's Day. Happy New Year, ya wee cunt. Franco wrapped his arm around Stevie's head. Stevie felt several neck muscles tear. As stiff, sober and self-conscious, he struggled to go with the flow. He returned the greeting as heartily as he could. There followed a round of Happy New Years, his tentative hands crushed, his stiff back slapped, his tight and unresponsive lips kissed. All he could think of was the phone, London and Stella. She hadn't phoned. Worse, she hadn't been in when he phoned, not even at her mother's. Stevie had gone back to Edinburgh and left the field clear for Keith Millard. The bastard would take full advantage. They'd be together right now, just like they probably were last night. Millard was a slag. So was Stevie. So was Stella. It was a bad combination. Stella was also the most wonderful person in the world in Stevie's eyes. That fact made her less of a slag. In fact, not a slag at all. Loosen up, for fuck's sakes, it's New Year. Franco, not so much suggested as commanded. That was his way. People would be forced to enjoy themselves if necessary. It generally was necessary. They were all frighteningly high. It was difficult for Stevie to reconcile this world with the one he just left. Now he was aware of them looking at him. Who were they, these people? What did they want? The answer was that they were his friends, and they wanted him. A song on the turntable drilled into his consciousness, adding to his misery. I loved a lassie, a bonny, bonny lassie. She's as sweet as the heather in the glen. She's as sweet as the heather, the bonny purple heather, Megan Mascot's bluebell. They all joined in with gusto. Can you beat Harry Lauder? It's New Year, like say, Dowsey remarked. In the joy of the faces around him, Stevie gained a measurement of his own misery. The pit of melancholy was a bottomless one, and he was ascending fast, falling further away from the good times. Such times often seemed tantalizingly within reach. He could see them, going on all around him. His mind was like a cruel prison, giving his captive soul a sight of freedom, but no more. Stevie slipped his can of export and hoped that he could get through the night without bringing too many people down. Frank Begbie was the main problem. It was his flat, and he was determined that everyone was going to have a good time. I got your ticket for the match tonight, Stevie. Into the Jambo cunts, Rinton said to him. Nobody watching it in the pub. I thought it was on satellite, like say. Sick boy who'd been chatted up, a small dark-haired girl Stevie didn't know, turned to him. Get to fuck, Stevie. You're picking up some bad habits doing in London, I'm telling you, man. I fucking detest televised football. It's like shagging with a Durex on. Say fucking sex, say fucking football, say fucking everything. Let's all build a nice safe wee world around ourselves, he mocked, his face contorting. Stevie had forgotten the extent of Sick Boy's natural outrage. Rince agreed with Sick Boy. That was unusual, thought Stevie. They were always slagging each other off. Generally, if one said sugar, the other said shite. They should ban off football on the telly and get the lazy fat fucks off their arses and along to the games. He's talked us into it, Stevie said in resigned tones. The unity between Rince and Sick Boy didn't last. You can talk about getting off your arse, Mr. fucking Couch Tatty himself. Keep off the H for more than 10 minutes, and you might make more games this season than you did the last one, Sick Boy sneered. You've got a fucking nerve, ya cunt. Rince turned to Stevie, then flicked his thumb derisively in Sick Boy's direction. They were calling this cunt Boots because of the drugs he was carrying. They bickered on. Stevie would once have enjoyed this, now it was draining him. Remember, Stevie, I'll be staying with you for a bit in February, Rince said to him. Stevie nodded grimly. He'd been hoping Rince had forgotten all about this, or would drop it. Rince was a mate, but he had a problem with drugs. In London he'd be straight back on the gear again, teaming up with Tony and Nixie. They were always sorting out addresses where they could pick up gyros from. Rince never seemed to work, but always seemed to have money. The same with Sick Boy, but he treated everybody else's cash as his own, and his own in exactly the same way. Party at Matty's after the game. His new place in Lawrence Street. Be there, sharp, Frank Begbie shouted over at them. Another party. It was almost like work to Stevie. New Year will go on and on. It'll start to fade about the 4th, when the gaps between the parties start to appear. These gaps get bigger until they become the normal week, with the parties happening at the weekend. More first foots arrived. The small flat was heaving. Stevie had never seen Franco, the beggar, so at ease with himself. Rab McLaughlin, or second prize as they called him, hadn't even been assaulted when he'd pished up the back of Begbie's curtains. Second prize had been incoherently drunk for weeks now. New Year was a convenient camouflage for people like him. His girlfriend Carol had stormed off in protest at his behaviour. Second prize hadn't even realised that she was there in the first place. Stevie moved into the kitchen where it was quieter, and he had at least a chance of hearing the phone. Like a yuppie businessman, he left a list of the numbers where he was likely to be at with his mother. She could pass his on to Stella if she phoned. Stevie had told her how he felt about her, in that ugly barn of a pub in Kentish Town, the one they never usually drank in. He laid his heart bare. Stella had said that she would have to think about what he said, that it had really freaked her out and was too much to handle right now. She said she would phone him when he got back up to Scotland, and that was that. They left the pub going in separate directions. Stevie went towards the tube station to get the underground to King's Cross, sports bag over his shoulder. He stopped, turned and watched across the bridge. Her long brown curls swished wildly in the wind as she walked away, clad in her donkey jacket, short skirt, thick black woolen tights and 9-inch Dr. Martens. He waited for her to glance back at him. She never turned around. Stevie bought a bottle of Bell's whiskey at the station and had arsed the lot by the time the train rolled into Waverley. His mood hadn't improved since then. He sat on the Formica worktop, contemplating the kitchen tiles. June, Franco's girlfriend, came in and smiled at him, nervously fetching some drinks. June never spoke and often seemed overwhelmed by such occasions. Franco spoke enough for both of them. As June left, Nicola came in, being pursued by Spud, who trailed behind her like a faithful, salivating dog. "Hey Stevie, Happy New Year, like say," Spud drawled. "I've seen you, Spud. We were up the Tron together last night, remember?" "Oh, right. Hang loose, catboy," Spud focused, grabbing a full bottle of cider. "Alright, Stevie, how's London?" Nicola asked. "God, no," thought Stevie. Nicola is so easy to talk to. I'm going to pour my heart out. "No, I'm not. Yes, I am." Stevie started talking. Nicola listened indulgently. Spud nodded sympathetically, occasionally indicating that the whole scene was too fucking heavy. He felt that he was making an arse of himself, but he couldn't stop talking. What a bore he must be to Nicola, to Spud even, but he couldn't stop. Spud eventually left to be replaced by Kelly. Linda joined them. The football songs would be starting up in the front room. Nicola dispensed some practical advice. Phone her, wait for her to phone, or go down and see her. "Stevie, moan through, ya cunt!" Begbie roared. Stevie tamely allowed himself to be literally dragged back into the front room. "Fucking shacked up the Mantovani in the fucking kitchen. You're fucking worse than that smarmy cunt there, the fucking jazz purist." He gestured over at Sick Boy, who was necking with the woman he'd been chatting up. They had previously overheard Sick Boy describe himself to her as basically a jazz purist. "So we're all off to Dublin in the green, fuck the Queen, where the helmets glisten in the sun, fuck the Huns, and the bayonets slash the orange sash to the echo of the Thompson gun." Stevie sat gloomily. The phone would never be heard above this noise. "Shut up the now," shouted Tommy. "This is my favourite song." The wolf tone sang Banna Strand. Tommy crooned along with some of the others. "On the lonely Banna Strand." There were a few moist eyes when the tone sang James Connolly. A fucking great rebel, a fucking great socialist, and a fucking great hippie. "James fucking Connolly, ya cunt," Gav said to Renton, who nodded somberly. Some sang along, others tried to maintain conversations above the music. However, when the boys of the old brigade came on, everybody joined in. Even Sick Boy took time off his necking session. "Oh Father, why are you so sad on this bright Easter morn?" "Sing, ya cunt," said Tommy, elbowing Stevie's ribs. Begbie stuck another can of beer in his hand and threw his arm around his neck. "When Irishmen are proud and glad of the land where they were born." Stevie worried about the singing. It had a desperate edge to it. It was as if by singing loudly enough they would weld themselves into a powerful brotherhood. It was, as the song said, call to arms music, and seemed to have little to do with Scotland and New Year. It was fighting music. Stevie didn't want to fight anyone, but it was also beautiful music. Hangovers, while being pushed into the background by the drink, were also being fuelled. They were now so potentially big as to be genuinely feared. They would not stop drinking until they had to face the music, and that was when every bit of adrenaline had been burned away. "On being just a lad like you, I joined the IRA Provisional Wing." The phone rang in the passage. June got it. Then Begbie snatched it out of her hand, ushering her away. She floated back into the living room like a ghost. "Where? Where's that? Stevie, right. Hold on the now. Happy New Year, doll, by the way. Franco put the receiver down. Wherever the fuck you are. He went through to the front room. Stevie, some fucking lemon on the blower for ye. Fucking bulls in the mouth, like say, London. Fo ya cunchy. Tommy laughed as Stevie sprang out off the couch. He needed a pee for the last half hour but hadn't trusted his legs. Now they worked perfectly. Steve, she'd always called him Steve rather than Stevie. They all did down here. Where have you been? Stella, where have I been? I tried to phone you yesterday. Where are you? What are you doing? He almost said who were you with, but he restrained himself. I was at Lynn, she told him. Of course, her sisters, Chingford or some equally dull and hideous place. Stevie felt a euphoric surge. Happy New Year, he said, relieved and brimming over. The pips went, the more changes put into the machine. Stella was not at home. Where was she? In a pub with Millard? Happy New Year, Steve. I'm at King's Cross. I'm getting on the Edinburgh train in 10 minutes. Can you meet me at the station at 10:45? Fucking hell, you're joking. Fuck. There's nowhere else in the world I'll be at 10:45. You've made my New Year, Stella. The things I says the other night, I mean them more than ever, you know. That's good, because I think I'm in love with you. All I've done is think about you. Stevie swallowed hard. He felt tears well up in his eyes. One left its birth and rolled down his cheek. Steve, are you okay? She asked. Much better than that, Stella. I love you. No doubts, no bullshit. Fuck, the money's running out. Don't ever mess me about, Steve. This is no fucking game. I'll see you at 11:15. I love you. I love you. I love you. The pips went and the line died. Stevie held the receiver tenderly, like it was something else, some part of her. Then he put it down and went and had that pee. He had never felt so alive. As he watched his fetid pish splash into the pan, his brain allowed itself to be overwhelmed with delicious thoughts. A powerful love for the world gripped him. It was New Year, Auld Lang Syne. He loved everyone, especially Stella and his friends at the party. His comrades, warm-hearted rebels, the salt of the earth. Despite this, he even loved the Jambos. They were good people just supporting their team. He'd first foot a lot of them this year, irrespective of the result. Stevie would enjoy taking Stella around the city to various parties. It would be brilliant. Football divisions were a stupid and irrelevant nonsense, acting against the interests of working class unity, ensuring that the bourgeois hegemony went unchallenged. Stevie had it all worked out. He went straight into the room and put the Proclaimer Sunshine on Leith on the turntable. He wanted to celebrate the fact that wherever he went, this was his home, these were his people. After a few grumbles, it struck a chord. The catcalls of the previous record's removal were muted at the sight of Stevie's exuberance. He slapped Tommy, Rince and Beggar around vigorously, sang loudly and waltzed with Kelly, caring nothing about people's impressions of the obviousness of his transformation. Nice of you to join us, Gav said to him. He was still high throughout the match, whereas for the others it went drastically wrong. Again he became distanced from his friends. First he couldn't share their happiness, now he couldn't relate to their despair. Hibs were losing to Hearts. Both teams were carrying out ridiculous numbers of chances. It was schoolboy stuff. But Hearts were putting at least some of theirs away. Sick Boy's head was in his hands. Franco glared malevolently over towards the dancing Hearts supporters at the other end of the ground. Rince shouted for the manager's resignation. Tommy and Sean were arguing about defensive shortcomings, trying to apportion blame for the goal. Gav cursed the referee's Masonic leanings, while Dawsey was still lamenting Hibbs's earlier misses. Spud, drugs and second prize alcohol were bombed out of their boxes, still at the flat, their match tickets good for nothing except future roach material. None of this mattered for the moment. As far as Stevie was concerned, he was in love. After the match, he left the rest of them to head to the station and meet Stella. The bulk of the Heart supporters were also headed up that way. Stevie was oblivious to the heavy vibes. One guy shouted in his face. The cunts won 4-1, he thought. What the fuck did they want? Blood, obviously. Stevie survived some unimaginative taunting on the way up to the station. Surely, he thought, they could do better than Hibby bastard or Fenian cunt. One hero tried to trip him from behind, egged on by baying friends. He should have taken his scarf off. Who the fuck was to know? He was a London boy now. What did all this shite have to do with his life at the moment? He didn't even want to try and answer his own questions. On the station concourse, a group marched over to him. Hibby bastard, a youth shouted. You've got it wrong, boys, and Borussia Mönchengladbach, man. He felt a blow on the side of his mouth and tasted blood. Some kicks were aimed at him as the group walked away from him. Happy New Year, boys. Love and peace, Jambo brothers, he laughed at them and sucked his sour split lip. Cunts a fucking head case, one guy said. He thought they were going to come back for him, but they turned his attention to abusing an Asian woman and her 2 small children. Fucking packy slag. Fuck off back to your own country. They made a chorus of ape noises and gestures as they left the station. What charming, sensitive young men, Stevie said to the woman, who looked at him like a rabbit looks at a weasel. She saw another white youth with slurred speech, bleeding and smelling of alcohol. Above all, she saw another football scarf, like the one worn by the youths who abused her. There was no colour difference as far as she was concerned, and she was right, Stevie realised with a grim sadness. It was probably just as likely to be guys in green who hassled her. Every support had its arseholes. The train was nearly 20 minutes late, an excellent performance by British rail standards. Stevie wondered whether she'd be on it. Paranoia hit him. Waves of fear shuddered through his body. The stakes were high, the highest ever. He couldn't see her, couldn't even picture her in his mind's eye. Then she was almost upon him, different to how he thought of her, more real, even more beautiful. It was the smile, the look of emotion reciprocated. He ran the short distance to her and held her in his arms. They kissed for a long time. When they stopped, the platform was deserted and the train was well on its way to Dundee. I've been made from Dundee, and from what I hear, she's just as well. She got off the train and avoided the place. So that was that. I hope you enjoyed it. I suppose there's a couple of things that I can realise, analysing the book, was Brenton, I suppose the kind of the complex of sectarianism in Scotland and in the book, without ruining, it's not a key part of the book's plot as such, but Renton was obviously singing The Boys of the Old Brigade and I suppose espousing the Provisional IRA, but they ended up inadvertently killing his brother, who was in the British Army in Northern Ireland. So that was not a subplot per se, but it was I found it ironic that the way it worked out. I suppose he had a Catholic mother and a Protestant father, and his brother supported Hearts, was into the Orange Walk side of things, and fought for the British Army in Northern Ireland in the Troubles, the time the book was set. And I suppose the pride of being Irish, of Irish descent, with singing other songs there like Bannistrand and James Connolly. It was nice. It was nice to see that side of things as an Irishman myself, and it was great to experience a match day at Easter Road. The match I was at, as I was saying earlier, was quite similar to the score in the chapter. It ended 3-1 to Hearts that night. It was 4-1 to Hearts in the book, so it was almost the same. So I hope you enjoy that, and I'll be kind of posting regular enough videos of other chapters from Robert Welch's books that I find good. And I hope if you have any comments or any feedback or anything you want to discuss about the chapter I just read, just drop me a line after it. So I hope you've had a great Christmas break, and hopefully 2021 will be a better year than what we just had. And Happy New Year again, guys.